And now I'd like to open the meeting to the sharing of testimonies of healing through Christian Science. Jim from Arizona, go ahead.
Good evening. I have been rereading the book that is published by our church, Sermons and Articles on Christian Science by Doris White Evans. Although just a couple of days ago I was feeling very, very tired, I did open the book and decide I'd read at least one title, one of the sermons, and it turned out to be The Carnal Mind. All happened instantaneously. I was absolutely devoid of all tiredness after I had finished that article. I am most grateful. Thank you.
Thank you. Pilar from New York, go ahead.
Hi, good evening. A few years ago, I decided to give my daughter a few pieces of jewelry that I had, and that really had some little value, but it was more like a sentimental value. I told her that I wanted to have it because I don't wear that kind of jewelry anymore anyways. And my daughter, I gave it to her in a little box, and then my daughter later moved from the apartment she had to another that was bigger, that will accommodate her growing family. 2 weeks ago, while on the phone with her, I kind of randomly asked her about the box that I had given her. She denied ever getting any jewelry from me or a box and told me that she did not have it and had no idea what I was talking about. I did not press the issue because it would have led me to have an argument with her. So I did search my apartment just to make sure that I had not imagined the whole thing. And I was sorry that she might have lost it in the turmoil of the moving. So I was, instead of becoming angry and upset, I thought, well, God knows where this little box with the trinkets is, and it is in His hands, and I repeated, "That will be done," several times. I also thought about the line in Mrs. Eddy's Science and Health, and I'm probably going to paraphrase this badly, but that says that nothing is lost in God's kingdom or God's world. Anyways, I meditated or thought about that quite a bit. And then I stopped thinking about it or even mentioned it again to my daughter. So 2 days ago, she surprised me by sending me a text message with photos of the jewelry that she had suddenly found while cleaning up my grandson's chest of drawers. She had put it there when she was moving and never thought about retrieving it. I was very, very grateful that it was found, as some of the pieces did have some sentimental value, and I'm sure she will be very happy to have them and keep them. I'm also very grateful that I was able to rely on God, knowing that nothing is hidden that will not be revealed. I'm also very grateful for Mrs. Eddy's Science and Health and all her writings that, give you so much instruction on how to deal with the day-to-day little minutia. I'm also very grateful to learn that leaving everything to the will of God, whatever the issue or problem is, it will be resolved in a very satisfactory manner. Thank you very much, and thank you for the readings. They were really beautiful this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Day, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you so much for tonight's readings and for the testimonies given so far. This morning I needed to take a very important document with me when leaving the house. I searched for it with confidence that I had printed and filled it out a few months ago in preparation for today, but I couldn't find it anywhere. I was just about to go online to complete the form over again when the thought came clearly to me that I hadn't turned to God. I simply asked, "Father, please show me where it is." And immediately, with no delay, my eyes went to a specific folder that I hadn't checked. I began writing my testimony mentally while walking over to check the folder because I was sure it would be there, and it was. If it weren't for what I'm learning in this church about acknowledging my oneness with God, I would have become frustrated and wasted a lot of time before finding the answer. I would have thought my finding the document was just by chance, or even that it was something that would have happened eventually somehow. I'm so grateful to know now that God is speaking to me constantly, and his messages always come clearly when I take the time to listen sincerely. I'm so thankful to God, to Mrs. Eddy, and to this church for this new way of life. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Gary, go ahead.
Good evening. This is Jeremy. In Psalm 14:1, it says, "The fool has said in his heart, there is no God." I was certainly a fool in the years before coming to Plainfield. When I was young, my family went to Christian churches in California, and I believed wholeheartedly in God. I always gained great comfort in knowing he was there looking out for all of us. But then 20 years later, I was an atheist. And I've spent a while since being at this church trying to trace the origin of that change. And I see now that it came down to a belief. I didn't think I deserved anything good, and I couldn't understand why good things ever happened to me. This belief slowly chipped away at my connection with God. I stopped praying because I felt I didn't deserve his love. Stopped gaining comfort from reading the Bible. And I lost my sense of purpose and found it nearly impossible to be joyful. Because it happened slowly, I didn't see it happening, and I didn't understand why. Because I didn't have Christian Science, I had no understanding and no tools to fight. A thought occurred to me a few weeks ago that put this into perspective. Banana bread doesn't deserve to be banana bread. It just is banana bread. It's not the most profound thought, I know, but I needed that simplicity to finally understand that thinking and worrying about whether I deserve anything is a waste of time. God is good, and he created all reality. Therefore, all of it is good and right, and that certainly includes me. So the only way to truly be grateful to God, and the only way to be useful, is to never worry about what I deserve, and to never wonder why I deserve it. The only suitable way forward is to embrace the fact that I am God's idea, and to strive to manifest and express truth, life, and love always. I'm grateful for all this church offers, and for how Christian Science is giving me the tools to be useful to God and mankind. I'm also grateful for daily practitioner support, and for all this church offers, as I simply was not able to figure out all this on my own. What a blessing it is that God has the grace and mercy and love to bring Christian Science to each one of us when we're ready. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Luann from New York, go ahead.
Thank you. I am deeply humbled by the effect of truth. I'm beginning to understand how it all unfolds so perfectly under God's government. I'm beginning to understand how every event and every action is divinely inspired for one purpose, to glorify God. Mrs. Eddy states in Science and Health with Key to the Scriptures, page 494, divine love always has met and always will meet every human need. A few weeks ago, my practitioner and I had a discussion about my willingness to let go of past things and commit to working for God and our church. Immediately, I began to argue, saying, "What can I do? I have so many fears. I have so much to overcome. I'm not ready. I can't even speak," meaning I don't have the confidence to speak in public. I wanted to say with confidence that I was willing, but as written in our lesson, Matthew 26:41, the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. I wanted to let go, but I was afraid. Later that evening, I asked God to search my heart. Help me to overcome my fears. Help me to know that I have confidence. Create in me a willing heart. It did not take long for divine love to open the way. The house painting job I was doing suddenly became very easily finished, and I was paid well, allowing for the opportunity to visit our church in Plainfield on the appropriate weekend. And I had let it be known that I would be traveling there. I was asked if I was willing to read the benediction at the closing of the Sunday service. Again, I was facing the question, am I willing to let go? With much trepidation, I agreed that I would try. I knew my practitioner was working, holding me in truth. I felt a great sense of love and support as I worked with the truth she had given me to study, to clear my thinking of any sense of self. Because of the love expressed here and the divinely inspired guidance and work of my practitioner, I was able to overcome a long-standing and paralyzing fear of speaking in public, removing this human weakness from my experience forever. By being willing to let go and let God work in me, I found my strength in Him. I was able to stand in front of the congregation, freely speaking His words. I am so deeply grateful to my practitioner for this healing. I'm so grateful to God for His mercy and tender loving care. I feel there was no better place for this healing to occur than right here in our church, where the Spirit, that is God, is so deeply felt and consistently working to make all things new. Christian Science in the Bible teaches us that there is only one I, and that I can. I am so grateful to be a member of this church, where we are not only encouraged to change, but given the opportunity and the support needed to do so. I'm grateful to God for Mrs. Eddy and this healing science. Thank you.
Thank you. Linda from Pennsylvania, go ahead.
Good evening. Thank you for the beautiful readings tonight and the music. I really, and all the testimonies. The service is just wonderful. Tonight I want to express my gratitude for all that's provided here for our spiritual development, for the practitioners, and the fellowship that I am finding here. The other day I had a very sore throat that came on suddenly. I had had an interaction earlier that day with a person whose behavior I had allowed to disturb me. Part of my prayer was to calm my thoughts by taking them off myself and putting them on God. I knew from what I was learning that this self-righteous thinking was not following Jesus' example or His precepts. One line that I think of often when bothered about what others are doing or not doing is when Peter asked Jesus, "Lord, what about him?" And Jesus responded, "What is that to thee? Follow thou me." The sore throat was gone in minutes when I made the conscious effort to stick with God. I continued to pray to see that God was the only power in my life and of others, and to think about this person how I would want someone to be thinking about me. I'm very grateful for this quick healing and also this lesson in loving and thinking correctly about our fellow man. Thank you very much again for this service. Good night.
Thank you. This is Bruce. I had a wonderful blessing today, and I wanted to share thanks, and I really owe it to Christian Science here in the Plainfield Church. What happened was I was going to a business meeting, and I was a little concerned about what I was going to say there, because the people that own this business are struggling very hard to get it turned around and on the right path. And I was poring over their records, and I had all kinds of ideas of things that I could say to them, but none of them felt right. So I sat down and asked God, are any of these ideas from you? And fortunately, I'd gotten there early, and I had plenty of time. And the idea came, why don't you pull out your telephone and call up the church website and just see if there's anything on there that can help you. Well, it made me very grateful that our website is so readily available, even on a telephone. But I saw one of the articles that's posted on the carousel. It's called Your Own Thought, and it's by Mary Baker Eddy. And it starts out by saying, whoever scorns another depreciates himself. Whoever sees another less than the image of God defaces his vision of the excellent of his own true being and of the righteousness of God. And this article goes on and on. Very, very helpful article. Talk about strong statements of truth that are so practical. But this gave me the idea, well, if I'm going to start get critical of these guys, I'm going to weaken myself, and it's going to be an offense to God. And I certainly don't want to do either one of those. So I finished reading this article, and I didn't come up with them. Our dear Heavenly Father told me what to say. Everything was brief and to the point and was harmonious. And the guys who owned the business went away on a positive note. And I found myself thanking God that He set me again back on the upward way and enabled His grace and His power to take hold of that meeting and to have it come out according to God's will instead of any sense of human planning on my own part, which is not too good. So I found myself so thankful to God, His wonderful truth, and His blessing for all of His mankind, and that we have such a wonderful website that's so readily available. Chardell from Pennsylvania. Go ahead.
I'd like to tell of a small demonstration that is monumental for me. Due to the teaching and practitioner support here at Plainfield Church, my understanding of the Bible and science and health with key to the Scriptures has been steadily growing. We are spiritual and made in God's image and likeness. We are mentally and physically free to be worthy and to obey God and do according to His will. Ever since I was a child, I could not eat raw cucumbers due to an uncomfortable reaction. Many days ago, when this food item was offered with a meal, I remembered my dominion under God, and instead of removing the cucumbers, I enjoyed them with my meal. To my delight and gratitude, everything was normal and fine. A few days later, the same thing happened. Thank you to all at Plainfield who are striving to understand and be free under God's divine laws of harmony, which are physical as well as mental. And thank you for this beautiful service. Good evening.
Thank you. Tom from New York, go ahead.
You know, there's so much in the lesson that I find so helpful. I just wanted to read one thing, teach my thy way, O Lord, and lead me in a plain path. It's very helpful in just telling myself to be patient. Sometimes it seems like there's just so much going on and, a lot of stress and stuff. And, I'll read something like this and just to say to have patience. And what's important, is to seek the Lord. So I appreciate the lesson and the church. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike from New York. Go ahead. Mike, we don't hear you. Perhaps.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we got you now. All right, go ahead.
So sorry. Anyways, I wanted to thank once again everybody for such a beautiful meeting, and I get so much out of the testimonies. They are so uplifting, and I am so grateful for everybody that shares. A number of years ago, I was working on my house roof. I was kind of in the midlife of my Christian Science career, and I kept thinking while I was up on the roof that if I fell off the roof that God would save me. And I quickly learned that that was a very wrong way of looking at things, because right at the end I had taken the piece of wood off that was holding the ladder in place, and I remembered that I left one tool up on the roof. So, since the ladder seemed very sturdy, I climbed up the ladder, grabbed the tool, and then as I stepped back onto the ladder, lo and behold, it slipped out, and I landed with a bang on my hip and on my back of my head hit. So my first thought was that I could call the practitioner, and then my second thought was that God is here and I can handle this myself. So I prayed that there, as we were taught in the textbooks, Science and Health is key to the scriptures, that there are no accidents in God, that all would be fine, and I felt fine, so there was nothing to worry about. A couple of days later, my wife looked at me and she said, "What happened to you?" And it's like nothing that I can remember. And she said, "Well, you have this bruise below your shorts," and it examined in it, sure enough. But I'd never felt a thing. I'd never felt hurt or anything. So I was very, very grateful. And then today, reading the lesson, I went one sentence further than one of the citations. And Mrs. Eddy says it all. And if you sprain the muscles or wound the flesh, your remedy is at hand. Mind decides whether or not the flesh shall be discolored, painful, swollen, and inflamed. I am so grateful for the teachings of Mary Baker Eddy. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Fairley from Maryland, go ahead.
I want to express my unending gratitude to Plainfield, the Plainfield Church, Independent, for saving my life through God. I am very grateful for all they went through in order to become independent, and all those who made the experience in this church so helpful and so fulfilling. My practitioner teacher who first welcomed me here when, thanks to Plainfield's wonderful website, I found the phone number and called here for the first time. As an adult in the Episcopal Church, when I first walked into a Christian Science church in Virginia where I was living at the time and read Mary Baker Eddy's book, Science and Health, I knew I had found the truth. But through numerous years in 3 different Christian Science churches, I never really was able to use it effectively in my life. 10 days of class instruction just didn't do it for me. In the 5 years before I found Plainfield, I had fallen into what was called a clinical depression. I would keep on doing all the things I had to do to keep house and live our life. But every morning when I woke up, I would start by thinking, "Oh no, another day." And I pretended to live. Basically, I was pretending to live. I also had a huge amount of fear as to how I was going to handle things if my husband should pass on before I did. One of the many scenarios that kept playing in my mind was that I used to do my own tax returns before I got married, but after that, my husband did our joint return. I now was really worried. I got into this whole thing of worrying constantly because I didn't think I could possibly do them. I wouldn't know how. And I knew the government would come after me. I'd have to go to court, that I would be called to court. And I thought, well, but I can't drive to Annapolis, our capital, Maryland, where there'd probably be me in court, since I was too afraid to drive. And how would I get there, and what would I wear, since I'd lost interest in how I dressed? My family put me in the psychiatric division of a hospital in a neighboring city for a couple of weeks' stay and treatment. Every fall for 5 years, I had been losing so much weight that they made me go back to the hospital, which was utterly wasted on me, since I did not believe anything in their treatments or medicines, and it did not get rid of my depression, all my fearful thoughts. Once I came to Plainfield, constant practitioner support, weekly Bible study lessons, roundtable discussions, all the books made available by early workers. I was quickly healed of my depression. It was a joy to wake up every morning. And I lost all fear about everything. And among other things, I took over the job of doing our tax returns. I am very grateful to God, all those at Plainfield, and all of our members and their testimonies. And thank you for the beautiful, beautiful readings tonight on divine grace.
Thank you. Florence from Georgia, go ahead.
Thank you. Tonight, I just would like to say something about the word grace and what it means and what it does. Grace, as we read, is a gift. It is the operation of divine love. The question is, am I accepting of this precious gift so as to have its effect in all areas of my life? It is clear that this accepting must come with a deep sense of humility and gratitude and the dedication to work steadily to keep my thinking on the things of God. This way, I remain a recipient of this amazing grace and see its effect in my home, my work, my relationships. After all, a gift I do not cherish cannot do much for me, and I probably would lose it. The world needs this gift of grace, and it is here for our taking. Thank God for both the Bible and Science and Health, which map out our steps and give us peace. Happy to be here tonight.
Thank you.